creep while you and me repeat. This bittersweet heat is suffocating. I'm waiting and always hesitating. Kryptonite desires set my heart afire. Heart on fire. Set my heart afire.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Costume and Play CosChat stream. So first up, I have a small apology to make. Sadly, Xanth is away this week. He is off in SunnyCon with Bandursnatch Studios, having an amazing time down there at the event. But don't worry, because I will be here to host the wonderful and fantastic Little Prince Cosplay, who is here with me today. You all right, my love?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm really, really good. I'm really, really excited to have you here because not only do you make costumes, you're also quite well known for tailoring your costumes, and you do a bit of tailor work yourself, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to spend a little bit of time chatting about that a little bit today, and then later on we're going to have a little bit of a comfort break, and then when we come back we're going to have questions from our audience. So tell me a little bit about what the difference is between tailoring a costume and, say, just sewing a costume.
Okay, so tailoring is a very specific set of kind of items of clothing. You're more likely to have a pair of tailored trousers than a tailored skirt. Like, you don't tailor a skirt. I mean, you can. The more kind of pencil skirt type things would be described as tailored, but it's the difference between dressmaking and tailoring is almost the difference between baking and cooking. You wouldn't necessarily say they have interchangeable skills, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So I make a lot of waistcoats, a lot of highly tailored uniforms and all that sort of stuff, blazers, trousers, all of those sorts of things are kind of my wheelhouse. So I am now starting to move into dressmaking and more of the kind of, I don't want to say feminine. I don't want to say that. That's not what I mean. But the more kind of, should we put traditionally feminine areas of sewing?
Yeah, that completely makes sense. So from what I understand about tailoring, it's more so about making an item of clothing fit to your body shape, to you personally.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's much more if you... okay, so what I mean in the difference between... we'll use a skirt, actually, for example, because you'll have what is a full circle skirt, which doesn't need any tailoring at all. Like, it literally just needs to fit at the waist, which you can put on a waistband. But the rest of it is free-flowing fabric. It's all in the drape and the hang of the fabric. Whereas in like a pencil skirt, obviously that has to fit around the bottom, around the hips and the thighs, and down to the knees, and it has to fit very tightly while still allowing movement. So that's much more about creating correct measurements and all that sort of stuff. Really, you have to make sure you know exactly where you need those tucks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you have started with tailoring and now you're getting into dressmaking, because typically most people do that the other way around.
Yeah, I think for me it was more to do with the fact that I wanted to make men's costumes, if that makes sense. Again, I put that in inverted commas. I wanted to make more masculine characters, so I was making suit jackets and all that sort of stuff. That's where I started. Like, literally the first big project I ever sewed myself was a driving coat, which is madness in all senses of the word, but it was like go hard or go home, really. So yeah, that was when I was about 18 and a half, 19.
That is mental for your first project. That is absolutely insane. How did it look at the end?
Not half bad, actually. I still have it. It's, it's not perfect. Like, there's mistakes I would change now, but actually, as things go, it was not bad. Like, for a first try.
For a first try,
that's like weeks and weeks
and weeks. That's insane. Like, my first try on the overlocker the other day, I ended up jamming the entire thing.
Oh no!
Yeah, the fact that you've made.
Yeah, I don't have an overlocker, but mostly for the exact reason that I feel like it would be a very expensive waste of money, because it would just break very quickly, or I wouldn't use it frequently enough. So they scare me quite a lot. Like, looking at all the arms, I'm like, why?
Why does it have so many arms?
Yeah, I'd rather get an embroidery machine with one really long arm
Yeah, I can completely
I
understand.
feel like that would be less terrifying.
But even so, like, we have an example of your work, which is an original base character based on Wintersmith, which uses real goose feathers.
Yes.
You have hand sewn. If just tell me a little bit about how you came about composing this, what you had to do for it, why you chose goose feathers, why they're hand sewn.
Okay, so basically, I'm part of the Lolita community in the UK, and there's the male form of Lolita, which is called Cadona. And this is a Cadona outfit which I made for our Christmas do, but I wanted to make it more interesting, and so I based it on the Wintersmith from Terry Pratchett, because I like my designs to be, to tell a story. And so I kind of wanted to go, this guy, he's regal, he's a prince, all this sort of stuff. How can I show that off? How can I create that look without kind of literally looking like Elsa from Frozen? Because it could happen.
Yeah.
And so instead I decided to go with this idea of the goose down and how snow and everything is described as looking like that. And so we went for me and a friend kind of sat down and went, feathers? And she looked at me like I was mad and went, oh god, what are you doing? And then I ordered somewhere along the lines of 500 goose feathers off the internet. And I really didn't want fake feathers because they're really fluffy. If you ever look at synthetic feathers and you get these very sort of fluffy, kind of tacky looking feathers, they're normally the ones you get inside like cat toys and stuff.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas goose feathers or real bird feathers have a completely different feel, a completely different movement to them. They're much stronger. They're not going to break or fall off the moment you sew them onto something. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to do that. They're all ethically sourced because, that's a much better idea. But yeah, so what I did was hand stitch every single one onto the costume by the point of the quill. So if you can imagine the feathers like that and you're holding it at the top.
Yeah.
So that's the quill. And if you sew them through there and then layer them all up, what you get is the movement, the same sort of movement as the movement of the wing.
Yeah.
Of a bird, and that looks much more natural and organic. And for a character like this and for a look like this, it works really well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's really incredible about this costume as well is that it really showcases what tailoring a costume is about, because the fit of the costume is so beautiful in terms of your kind of framing your body shape, but it also looks really powerful. And I can understand what you mean, once again, not wanting to stereotype, but it having that kind of masculine power.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the costume, the sort of the waistcoat, which is a long waistcoat that goes to the floor, it's very highly tailored in. There's a lot of darting work, there's a lot of fitting to make sure it fits perfectly to the body, which I had to redo. I ended up putting extra darts in because I wasn't quite happy with the original fit.
Yeah.
It wasn't, a waistcoat should sculpt the body. It should draw out the shoulders and bring in the waist. That's the entire point. And then to have the flare of the skirt, which is you can't actually see in those pictures, is pleated in the back. It has a lot of flow in it as well to mirror the cape, the little cape, the feather capelet.
Yeah.
And it was very important for me to be able to use the feathers and the coat in the same way.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense, and you can really see it as well in terms of how much work that took to make sure that it fitted you properly, and having the techniques behind you to know where to cut the darts and the pleats to make it fit onto your body. How long would you say that took you time-wise, and do you feel that it often takes you extra time to make a costume because you want to do it to this level?
So this costume I made in 2 weeks.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, it was madness, utter madness. But normally a design like this or something like that, I would normally give a whole month over to.
Yeah.
Or longer. Like my Riddler costume, which I don't actually think we have any pictures of, I actually spent the best part of 4 months working on and off on it to make sure it was completely perfect.
Yeah.
And Hux, which you've kind of seen a couple of pictures of already, that I did over the space of a month, but it was after like at least another month before then of planning and research and making sure I got everything right before I even started.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I think that's kind of, maybe you almost have kind of a natural talent for it then, in terms of making the clothes fit to you. It's like your General Hux costume, for instance, you had to hand pattern that cosplay, which basically means that you had to create all of the patterns for it from scratch. You didn't have kind of a piece of paper that you could just lay on the fabric and cut out. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Okay, so with this one, I've been learning to sew since I was 18, 19-ish, and now I'm 25, so about 7 years. And like along the way, I'm completely self-taught, so along the way I'm picking up these new skills, and pattern making is the one I'm kind of currently wrestling with, because unfortunately General Hux was absolutely perfect. Like every part of it came out perfectly. My pattern making worked, really well. Everything worked, apart from the collar, which me and it have had several arguments over the course of this build.
Oh, bless you.
But because you have to. I mean, there's every skill you learn, you have a learning curve with it, and not everything goes right first time. And for this one, unfortunately it was that the collar didn't quite work, but it means that next time when I take the pattern paper out again and I start working out and checking my measurements, I'll double check things. I'll make sure that particular component is doesn't go wrong again, and then these things happen. But to hand pattern anything is a massive kind of moment of like, oh, what am I doing? Because normally, like you said, you normally have a pattern with instructions where you know what size you're using, and then you modify. I quite frequently modify my sizes, change the fit a lot, because I'm like, actually I want that to fit tighter there, or I want to do this instead of that. So I normally modify. But with this one, I just could not find anything that I could modify, and so I had to start with what's called a block. Yeah. Which is basically a rectangle.
Okay.
That you then add your measurements to.
Yeah.
And then you kind of cut from there. But yeah, I'm still not very good at it. Like, I'm getting there. But that's the thing. You learn with everything you pick up. You have to start at some point and learn the next skill. You can't just be amazing at everything straight away. It doesn't happen. As much as I would wish, never mind.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing though, is that I think one of the most amazing things about cosplay in general, to be honest, is learning all these new skills, trying to do this thing, getting frustrated with it sometimes, but then it's always the end product that I think is worth looking forward to right at the end. And I think as well, if you don't mind me asking, do you have a mannequin at home that you use to measure with, or do you use yourself, or do you have friends that help you? Or
I have a mannequin, but because unfortunately it's a female mannequin, and so the chest size doesn't go down to the size that I need for myself. Yeah. And so I can do quite a lot on there, and it goes down small enough that things like fit onto it, but it's not perfect. So I'll normally measure myself, and then I will, especially with something like Hux, I'll use myself as the mannequin a lot of the time, because it's kind of easier. I find it easier to work on myself, to be trying it on constantly and be like, does this fit? Does this check? Because I think that you get a better, closer fit by doing that, because you're constantly tweaking it. You're like throughout the build, even once you're past the point of making and cutting out your pattern, when it's pretty close to being the right fit. The human body doesn't quite work like that, so you're always going to have moments where you're like, actually I want to take that in a little bit more on the shoulder, or actually I want to put another, I want to bring it in a little bit closer under the arm to get it just that little bit closer, that little bit tighter. Or inversely, you might think, actually I don't think this sits right on the waist. It's not hanging right because it's too close in, and so you just add a little bit, maybe a half inch in a seam or something like that. It's you have to be constantly thinking and working the whole time, and it's an organic process. You can't just rely on the measurements you're given from even from yourself, because there's error involved, and so to try it on at every stage of the process means that you're going to get it correct at the end.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really good advice as well in terms of like finding a skill and learning about it, you know, just kind of getting to grips with trying it on, seeing how it fits, seeing how it works. The other thing as well is that you've mentioned a lot of sewing techniques, and you've used obviously the terminology relating to that, like pleats and darts, etc., etc. I'll be honest, I panicked because I saw your work and I spent a long time looking at your Facebook page. If you have not already, please do go and check out Little Princess Facebook page. The work is absolutely phenomenal. And I basically just binge watched the sewing bee because I wanted to be able to understand what it was that made your work so special. So tell me a little bit about what the basic terminology means for everybody at home.
Okay,
what they should learn.
I'll start with I don't know. Okay, so a dart is the bits where I'm wearing too loose of clothing. I don't have anything that has a dart on it. It's kind of, you'll see like a little fitting line, often down the front of a dress here or in the back. You may have, they sometimes come in here on waistcoats or jackets to fit round a shape, or you have them, or on something that's tightly shaped to the bust, you might have darts in underneath the bust, because what it does is it brings the fabric in. It almost pinches the fabric in and creates like how a seam creates a curve, or I'm trying to describe it. Yeah, so if you have a curved seam, it fits to the shape. A dart is almost like a miniature seam that's triangular, so that it kind of basically will give a little bit less fabric in a certain place, pull it in tighter. So literally, if I show you, it'll do that. So if you can see there, I've pinched that bit of fabric, and that brings it just in that little bit tighter to the chest, and that's what a dart does. That's a bad description of a dart. Please just go and look up on the internet what these terms mean afterwards, because I will be getting them wrong. Pleating is kind of literally fold, press, and you get like quite a long line. Or you can do what are called box pleats, which is when you have two folds that come in together in the middle and meet, and so you get two fold lines down next to each other, and that's how you get things like Anna's skirt from Frozen, is box pleats all the way around to get the pattern on the outside and have the green on the inside.
Oh wow, yeah, that's clever.
Yeah, that's what box pleating does. You'll have there are so many different types of pleats as well. There are accordion pleats, which are you know those skirts that are very popular at the moment that are sort of loose, but they've got like a pleated fold in them.
Yeah,
hang to the knee. That's accordion pleats.
Is that an accordion pleat? That's such an amazing name.
I know, right? I love it. I think it's got another name as well, but that's what I call them, and that's what I've always been told they're called. So yeah, you can have inverse pleats, you can have like kilt pleats, which are the really obvious ones, like a kilt pleat's what you have on a school skirt.
Yep.
All that sort of thing. There's loads and loads of different types. You have gathering, which is another kind of form. It's another way of pulling in fabric. Often you'll have it on a puff sleeve. It will be gathered to give, so you have lots of fabric. Ooh, I'm getting excited, making the laptop move. Yeah, if you have a lot of fabric in a sleeve like this and you gathered it, it would pinch up to make the sleeve into more of a sort of a puff sleeve, or just to give a bit more fullness there. I'm trying to think of an example. Say like the sort of Sailor Moon big kind of puffy sleeves that you see on almost like princess dresses and stuff like that. That will normally have gathering in it, so that you've got a lot of fabric in a very small amount of space to create this illusion of the full sleeve. It's quite clever, really. I'm trying to think of other things that I can tell you about.
There's so many, aren't there?
There are so many. I'm just like, where to start with all of it? I mean, to be honest, the best thing I can recommend is that everybody get themselves a copy of what's called the sewing book, because it explains everything. It is literally my Bible. Like it will teach you every single basic point. If you want to learn to sew, that's where I would suggest sewing. Starting, who's it by? It's on the wall. It's by Alison Smith, and it's just called The Sewing Book. It's big and red.
Do you know what? I might actually get myself a copy of that.
Yeah.
I am legit trying to learn to sew at the moment, hence why I was mentioning about the overlocker earlier.
The other book I'd recommend is called The Complete Guide to Sewing. They're both brilliant, and they both literally take you from basics, but they have slightly different ways of doing it. And so obviously if you don't necessarily click with one book, you might be able to click with the other. There's also loads of tutorials on YouTube, which I would actually recommend for anybody who's a kinesthetic learner, because if you watch a YouTube tutorial, you not only get to watch them doing it, you normally get to hear them explaining it, and they'll have the instructions written out for you as well. So you'll get every important point through every different medium for you. It's really useful. But yeah, anybody who's learning to sew, I would just suggest do it. There's, you can buy fabric cheap, you can get bed sheets and stuff like that, or you can just buy a load of really cheap calico and practice. Like, it's best to just practice and practice and practice and practice with cheap fabric, and then, a month down the line, a year down the line, however long it takes before you think you're ready, then you get the expensive stuff, and then you make the first big costume. It's it's not a tough thing to do, but I think you have to learn patience, and you have to be aware that sometimes things aren't going to go quite right, and you're going to scream at it a lot.
Yeah, I think that links back to what we were saying earlier, sadly off stream, but it's so amazing to know that your first sewing project was a coat. And I think being daring and being daring and going out there and being like, okay, I really want to learn the techniques to figure out how to make this thing is a really good way to push yourself to want to do it. Tell me about the coat. Tell me why you chose the coat as your first project.
I chose the coat because I liked the coat. That's literally the reason I went, I really like that, I want to make it. But also because I felt like if I was going to do it, I should try harder, if that makes sense. Like, I should basically see the coat I made had so many different techniques in it, from tailoring through to draping through to complicated pockets and buttonholes. It had a very complex collar on it, all this sort of stuff, and it meant that I had to practice so many different skills in order to make this one thing, that it pushed me to learn a lot more very quickly. Because if you pick a project that's just like an A-line skirt as your first project, yes, okay, that helps you get comfortable with the machine, which I will always say is a good thing to do. I think that you should, your first 2 projects really, when you're first learning to use the machine, is a cushion cover, because then you're just doing straight lines.
Yeah.
And some form of very simple skirt, be it a circle skirt or an A-line or a pleated one, something very simple where it doesn't hug the body, but you can practice doing slightly more complex sewing techniques for that, as well as understanding how to use a pattern, because the first time you open a pattern booklet and you're just staring at it like, what
you just want to cry.
What have I been given? And then from that point, you're actually, I feel like, the world is your oyster. You understand your sewing machine, you understand the pattern book, you've got your sewing Bible. You can do anything really. Yeah, it might not go wrong, but happens. And actually, I find that making the mistakes makes you learn better, because you then go, right, why did that happen? What do I need to make sure I don't do next time?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. And I think it's really kind of inspiring, even from kind of the level and the quality that your work has gotten up to now, just being like, please just go away and make a cushion cover, start with a cushion cover.
It's literally my first piece of advice is either like a cushion cover or like one of those bags that's literally like a rectangle with like a flap on the top.
Yes,
like that works
exactly
as well.
What you mean. I'm
Any
so sad that I don't have one to show. I might, in the comfort break, what I'll do is I'll pop off and get it, because that is exactly the thing that I made.
Yeah, it's such a it's so easy, because it's literally like some straight lines, but then you're proud of yourself at the end because you've done it. The other thing I think is, when you make something, when you start sewing, you want to keep pushing yourself. You want to keep doing these things. You want to start with something like that and then move on to the next level and stuff, because you want to. There's no point in failing straight away. Like, that sounds ridiculous, but if you can make something and you can go, I made this, no matter how ridiculously, tricky you found it, or the amount of times you argued with your sewing machine or whatever, even when you get to my level, like when I finished Hux, I was literally sat on the floor like, I made that. I fucking made that. Wow. I did that. Go me. And it still happens. Like, literally, I've been cosplaying for 10 years and sewing for, say, 6.5. I really can't remember when I started. That's awful, isn't it? And like, I still, every time I finish a costume, I'm still like, I did that. Yeah. Excellent, which is kind of slightly ridiculous, but...
No, I think that's brilliant, though, because I think that is because it's not just about the fact that it's something that you've created. You get to then wear that and really treasure it and become the character. And, you can stand back and look at it and go, right, that's where my hundreds of hours have been,
Exactly. I mean, for me, I also make my own clothes a lot of the time because I'm part of, like I said, the Lolita fashion, as well as I'm part of what's called the chap fashion. Chaps, we love chaps, but not the kind of horse riding ones.
Is it like Mr. B, kind of
Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer, and Professor Elemental, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
But I'm quite small, and the clothes I want to wear do not fit me. So I have to make my own, which is fine, but also means that I now have a column in a magazine talking about it, which is weird.
Which magazine is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Say that again?
Which magazine is that, if you don't
It's
mind me asking?
It's called The Chap.
Oh, it is just The Chap magazine?
The Chap.
Oh, well, that's amazing.
Yeah. Which is awesome, and I really enjoy it. But, there is a point where you go, why did I get involved in, like, alternative fashion? Because I make costumes, and now I make my own clothes. All I do is sew. What? Oh, why can't this be easy for once? But it's a good thing that I absolutely love doing it. I really enjoy sewing. Like, for me, a lot of the joy from cosplay comes from the creation. Like, being able to sew and build my costumes is part of my utter enjoyment of the hobby. I don't think that I would cosplay anymore if I was just buying my costumes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
I do infrequently compete in competitions and stuff, and knowing that I have done a good job to take it up to competition standard is incredibly important to me. Like, I love being able to do that and being able to go, this is perfect. I have done my best. And it's weird because tailoring, thank you for saying it's impressive, because tailoring gets really overlooked in cosplay a lot, because a lot of the time you can't tell it's there, you can't see it. Pretty much across the board, I would say that most of my costumes, people have asked me where I bought them from, because they just assume they are bought, especially with things like Riddler, where it's a suit.
Yeah.
With Hux, where it's an Imperial First Order uniform, which you can get versions of online. And, that is a compliment in many ways, but also kind of slightly,
Yeah, I think the most amazing thing, and one point that I really want to make, not that I ever want to say that anybody that does dressmaking is lesser or lower degree.
Oh, no,
I would
definitely
never
not.
ever say that. But I think that there is a big kind of, because of the way it's made, and because, for instance, a shirt, if you see a dress that has a circle skirt at the bottom, or even something swooshy at the bottom that has lots of colours, the movement of the material itself, for instance, that might actually be technically very simple to sew in comparison to a standard shirt, which is actually really complicated to sew because you have to get certain things into alignment. There might be interfacing. You might have to put in various different techniques that Little Prince has mentioned. Of course, there are absolutely exceptions to the rules. Like there are dresses that are ridiculously
definitely. I think
complicated and.
I mean, bodices on dresses. I mean, even like a circle skirt. Yeah, there is. There's varying degrees of difficulty in different types of skirts and all that sort of stuff. I would never ever say that that tailoring or dressmaking one is better or harder than the other, because it's not true at all. Like, I made a bodice recently, and I literally was just there like, why are all these pieces curvy? Why do they fit together? And it just took me a moment to get my head around it again, because I was like, wait, no, I'm not. No, yes, fine, this is fine. But like I said, the skills are completely interchangeable. But the thing is that I think a lot of people will see a shirt, and because you can literally just buy a shirt in a shop, the automatic reaction is not, wow, you made that, is, oh, where'd you buy that? Like, the most obvious example of this is my Newt Scamander costume, which isn't finished yet, but I wore kind of half finished to an event. And someone literally came up to me and asked, oh, I really like your trousers, where did you get them from? And I was like, oh no, I made them. And like the look on their face, like this moment of, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's like there's this little light bulb thing that happens to people when you suddenly go, oh no, I made these trousers. Or, oh no, I made this shirt. They go, wait, what now? Like, it's just so unexpected. They don't necessarily, like, literally, I think most people who walk past me when I'm wearing Hux or Riddler or Newt will probably just be like, oh, you got those Endebenhams, you know. So it's interesting, I think, but I take it as a compliment. If somebody thinks that you could buy it from a shop, then I've done a good job.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, it's great as well that you've stuck at it, even though it may not be quite as on the surface visually impressive to other people. In terms of, like, it's not a massive ball gown. You're not rocking up as a Disney princess, you know.
And you know, you have no idea how many times I've been standing in the queue for a competition and there's somebody wearing a massive suit of armour, and I'm just there like, well, fuck. You know?
Yeah.
Hello, friend. And again, armour making is a very difficult skill. It's something I struggle with quite a lot. It's just my head has not got round it at all. Weirdly, you know. Yeah, it's a very, like I said, very, very different skill set, and I'm always impressed by people, but it's so difficult, and I always feel for people who are judging competitions where they don't necessarily have a separate sewing and armour category of how they judge any sewn costume, no matter what type it is, whether it's dressmaking or whether it's got a huge amount of embroidery in it, or whether it's, you know, tailoring like what I do, against something that's armoured or props built, you know. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, what we're going to do, guys, is, audience out there, we're going to leave you with this question. How would you judge a sewing cosplay in comparison to an armoured cosplay? What would you do? What kind of points would you look at? Is there something in sewing that you love? Is there something in armour that you love? And when we come back, we will also be taking your questions for Little Prince cosplay. So we're going to go and have a little bit of a comfort break now, guys, and we'll see you back in 5.
There's a distance between us. It's getting hard to reach out. Haven't seen you in seasons, but all I hear is your voice.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back for CosChat, and I am, of course, joined by Little Prince. Woo!
Howdy!
An amazing stream so far. We've asked Little Prince so many questions about sewing and tailoring, and it's been all of the hype. But now we're gonna ask questions from you guys at home. So first up, do you have any inspirational figures that you follow?
God, yeah, I have a few. Oja Marine Cosplay, who is absolutely outstanding, and a good friend of mine. She's wonderful. She's one of the cosplayers who's really pushed me to improve my skills and to get better, because every time she does something, I just see her progression as a cosplayer. And I think she's been cosplaying for maybe 3 or 4 years longer than me, ish. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, you can kind of see where you can get to. It's great to be able to see someone who, like, every step of the way, every new costume they make improves over and over again, and you can see that actually you will be able to do that, you know, and you do it, even though it's very difficult to see in your own work. But being able to watch somebody who you admire doing that as well, and who, you know, is very aware of the fact that they're always improving as well, doesn't think they're brilliant or the best or anything like that, you know, she is incredibly humble about her costumes, and I really, really admire that, and I respect her for what she's able to do, as well as the attitude she brings to cosplay. The other ones, oh god, Pasta Cosplay is great, absolutely amazing. Currently making Star-Lord from the Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Nice.
Man, I would suggest anyone check out their builds, like any of their builds. They're insane. They're absolutely brilliant. I'm literally trying to think of anyone else who I'd just be like, oh, you're amazing. Weirdly, and now my brain's gone completely blank. Honestly, there's a lot of cosplayers whose attitudes I absolutely just adore, because they're they don't think, oh, you know, I can make my costumes, or I make my costumes, or like I'm better than everybody else. They don't think that. They're just getting on with it, and just, you know, they don't care that they're not cos famous, or they, you know, they're just enjoying what they do. Lizu-chan is also amazing. She has been the representative of the Netherlands at the World Cosplay Summit several times, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's always competing, and every costume she makes, I literally am just like, Senpai, notice me.
Notice me, senpai.
Which is also weird, because I'm quite good friends with her. And it's like, why are you so good, Senpai? You know. I'm trying to think if anyone else off the top of my head who I'd recommend. UK cosplayers, Laura Sindel, who was the UK representative for at the World Cosplay Summit last year, and who is just outstanding, absolutely crazy good. I love her, and I stalk her a little bit on Instagram, but she's amazing.
There's nothing wrong with a little bit of cosplay stalking. I
would say that my inspiration. I honestly, like, most of my cosplay inspirations are you know, people who sew, dressmakers, tailors, all that sort of stuff. The people who I can see my own skills reflected in, and can see that, yeah, you know, they are however many years down the line, or, you know, they've been a sensible human being and gone to university and learned how to do it. And just have come out the other end like, holy crap, you're so good. But it's really great because it means you can go to them for advice, and they're very happy to give that advice and all that sort of stuff. I would say that's one thing. Never be scared to talk to them, to people you admire, because in most cases they'll go, oh yeah, sure, I'll give you some advice. Even if it's not necessarily, they can't give you a lot of time, they'll be more than helpful to be like, well, this is where I found this, or this is where I found this piece of information. One last one is probably Rattle and Burn, who is a professional costume maker, and one of the most brilliantly helpful cosplayers in the world, because they always post their patterns online. They don't necessarily post like a PDF or something, but they will take photographs of everything they make, every step of the way, from like block to a finished piece, and post it all on the internet. So if you're learning to do pattern making like I am, being able to see somebody do it is very, very helpful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Have you ever thought about taking your work and doing it professionally? So like offering commissions or creating a clothing line, or?
Not really, because my the thing I love doing, I'm a writer, and writing is takes a lot of time and work, and I don't have that much time to make my own costumes, let alone for anybody else. And I love what I do. I don't think I'd change it for the world. Cosplay is very much my hobby, and very much my escapism from, you know, the the rigmarole of being a journalist and a radio writer. There's no rigmarole. It's mostly just crying in a corner and going, why don't you finish your self-script? Why? And then go, this is why I have no money. But, you know, I several people have said to me, you know, oh, it's never too late to change career and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, no, I am a writer. It's what I want to do. It's pretty much all I've ever wanted to do as a job. And as much as I love sewing, sewing is very much my escape, very much my, you know, the part of my life that is just for me and not for anybody else. Plus, making commissions is really, really hard. Because you have to be able to go, take these measurements exactly, and they're not there for you to measure off or to check as you go along, which is a pain. Really.
It must be quite solitary, though, as well, if you're kind of, and it's a very kind of self-driven, if you're constantly writing things and you're making cosplays. How would you say that you get around that kind of thing, or?
Well, the writing stuff is it is a struggle to stay motivated. A lot of the time what I'll do is I will have a project or something that's on the go, or work that's going on, and I will work till that's finished, until it's done, and then I'll give myself a break of 2 or 3 days where I'll do cosplay. It won't be that, like, it's not that I go to the office, I do work, I come home at 5 o'clock, and then I sit and do cosplay. It's that I'll be like, well, no, I work however long it takes to get this you know, this piece for this magazine done, or whatever. You know, I normally write 1,000, 2,000 words a day if I can. You know, there'll be days when that doesn't happen. There always are. But on the days where it doesn't happen, I go, okay, it's not happening, so I'll sew today. which I think seems fair. You know, it's just keeping kind of a balance between the two.
Yeah.
It is tricky. It is tricky because you do have days where you're just like, I want to do nothing but watch television today. But I think everyone has that.
Yeah.
I think it's purely just going, how much do I want this, and how much will I be sad if I don't do it?
Yeah.
Plus, when you're, you know, every so often when someone pays you for writing, you know, then you're like, I'm being paid for this. I have to hit my deadline. You don't have a choice about it, you know. And then you feel like, well, I've hit my deadline. I've made my money. Right. Go and do the sewing now. Da, da, da. Like, you know, I had a deadline today, which I sent off by 4, and so like the rest of the day has just been me kind of chilling out. And then over the weekend, I'm going to start cutting out and sewing together my blazer jacket for Newt, because it's like, okay, I don't have to do as much over the weekend. I can go back to, you know, or maybe I'll do a bit because I want to, and I'll go back to it on Monday. It's quite nice. Really, I enjoy it. But yeah, it is a little bit solitary. You don't talk to anyone. It's quite nice to be able to talk to people sometimes.
I was going to say, do you find that like your social life tends to happen more so at conventions than when you meet other people? And
no, my social life tends to happen more. Like I said, I'm a Lolita, so I go to Lolita meets and stuff like that. But also, I go back to up until like the last month, I was living in Bath, and so I go back to Bath quite frequently. And you know, I generally, I mean, a lot of my social life does happen at cons, but I try to make sure it doesn't only happen at cons, because otherwise it doesn't happen at all. But you know, if I am going to a con, then I'll make sure to make more of a weekend of it, if that makes sense. It won't just be, I'm at a con, because also when I'm at conventions, I'm working. I am working either as press, or I'm selling my radio show, or working with a couple of comics companies I work for, all that sort of stuff. So I am normally working when I'm at conventions. And so, like, we'll get there on Friday and we'll stay till Monday because we want to be able to, you know, I especially want to be able to see social stuff. And I've just seen the comment, no, Newt as in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Scamander, yeah. Because more coats, that's what I want to be making. More coats.
That makes a lot of sense.
I do. Like, I made the coat for Hux in a week, and I genuinely, by the end of it, was screaming and crying on the sofa. Like, I was literally sat there like, this is the worst thing I've ever done to myself. And when it was finished, I literally was like, oh, it is done. Victory! It is done. I never have to make a coat again. Oh my god, I have to make another coat in like 2 weeks' time. What? No. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Andy.
So, what would you say is the most important part of cosplay for you?
For me personally, the most important part of cosplay is making something I'm proud of. I really enjoy hanging out with my friends, but I also, like, most conventions I only do one day in costume now because like I said, I'm working or whatever, and so I'm still hanging out with my friends then, even though I'm not in costume. So like, cosplay and social life aren't interlinked for me. Whereas making the costume and being proud of what I've made and actually doing something where I can look at it and go, bloody hell, that's screen accurate. Or, you know, actually, I designed this whole thing from scratch, like my BB-8 costume, which I don't think we have any pictures of, but my BB-8 costume is all entirely hand done, and it's got, like, all over it, the patches that are BB-8's little circles. And they are, there you go, haha. And each one of those is individually handmade and appliqued onto it.
Oh, wow.
And that costume, they're not painted on, they're all hand sewn on, yeah.
That's mental. That's amazing.
Yeah, and if I should have sent you a close up, but on the when you get in really close, it's got top stitching on it where BB-8 has like rivet lines. There's top stitching onto the patches.
That's clever.
Yeah, it that costume kind of went from like madness to like true insanity in every step of the build, because like there are bits you'll never see, never ever see, but they're there.
I was gonna say, like, the detail work. That's mental, absolutely mental.
Yeah, I have it in the cupboard. I might get it out in a minute. But like, there's top stitching all over the place, and there's like one bit where I just did a random top stitching line. It doesn't do anything. It's not that it's doing anything. It's just because if you look at Star Wars costumes, they pretty much just have random. Director Krennic is actually a perfect example of this. His cloak has loads of random bits of top stitching all over it, and it's just to make it look more realistic. Because if you look at a pair of jeans in the shop, they will have just a random bit of detail that doesn't do anything. It's just there, and it just makes it feel more like clothes and less like a costume, especially with something like with BB-8. That's what you want. You want it to look like, because I designed it to look like a pilot's uniform, and so I wanted it to feel like pilot's uniforms. If that makes any sense outside of my own head.
I was going to say, do you fancy a little bit of show and tell? Because I've completely forgotten to grab my bag as well. So what we could do is literally take 2 seconds. You could run and get your costume. I'll run and get my bag. And then we'll show you, like, crappy beginner person sewing next to, like, amazing. That would be incredible.
It's here. It's in the wardrobe. It's fine.
It's fabulous. Right. I don't know where the bag would be. I'm going to have to kind of guess. I tell you what, I'm going to ask our lovely production manager if he has some like amazing music that he could potentially play just for like 2 seconds.
I'm ready. I don't know about you.
Oh, there we go. Holly's ready. Right. I'm going to go and see if I can find it. Give me 2 secs.
I'm walking alone right up in the sky. I need you to listen.
Hello, we're back. Sadly, I have been unfruitful, but Holly has been fruitful, so we will just show you Holly's. It's like wibbly, basically. If you look at your first piece of sewing, it's all like the top stitching is all wobbly, and it's kind of sort of a crazy mess of fabric. But this is what it looks like when you've been doing it for, what was it, 6.5 years, 7 years?
Ish. Ish. Okay, so yeah, this is BB-8. I'm just going to hold it up to the camera so you can see. But this is all hand stitched on. And if you look here, you can see there's just, it's not very clear, but there's a line of stitching just
Oh yeah, I can just see it. Yeah, I can just
which is just the top stitching to show the rivet lines.
Wow.
I'm going to, right, and then underneath the arms, there's all of this mess.
Oh gosh, that's mental,
Which is
yeah.
the panel, which has just been sewn onto the, sewn on and top stitched in with all the, and that's on the inside of the legs as well. Trying to find all the random detail bits. Yeah, and so this is the straps for the pilot straps, and again that's all top stitched.
Gosh, that's mental. This is why every time you make a cosplay, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself a little book and take pictures and put them in the book. Because
I do.
Yeah, you remember.
I have so many work in progress pictures. I'm trying to find just all the bits where it's kind of slightly random. Right. So this is the flight jacket, and it's all quilted.
Oh my god! How long did that take you? That's insane.
I can't remember. By this point, I was having some form of delirium, I think.
Wow.
Okay, so the bit that amuses me most is that underneath the flight jacket on the back, there's this. You can't see this when the flight jacket is on, but it's there. There, it is beautiful. Look, it's so nice. It's got lots of top stitching on it.
Oh, wow.
It's lovely. But it's just in case I take it off, and I want to, I don't want it to break character. It's the same with my Riddler costume, actually. On the back of the waistcoat, there's a massive question mark, but you never see it.
I think that makes it so much more real, though, doesn't it? Because
it's part of the reason I absolutely love doing these things. It's just one of the lost a little bit. This is the little wristband that I have because I have a tattoo on my wrist, and so I don't want it to.
Oh yeah.
See? And so I just made this, and it's just like little bits of top stitching to give it just a little bit more depth, detail.
It looks so neat. That is mental.
I made this in 20 minutes.
Jeez.
I know how long it took me to make this because it was Thursday night before the con.
That is mental. Also, I agree with our production manager's comment of a fun Easter egg for people to find on.
Yeah, they're all over. Okay, so pretty much every single one of my costume will just have these random bits in it that I put in because either I like them or because I think it fits the character. And every so often people come across them and they're like, what? Like the fact that my new Panda trousers have a wand pocket in them in the back that literally I can fit my wand into.
That's
it's
amazing.
very, very thin and you can't see it when I'm walking around. I can just put my wand in it.
That is how to cosplay, ladies and gentlemen. A wand pocket. I want to cosplay something from Harry Potter, possibly Severus Snape, and do exactly that. My goodness me.
Yeah. Also, the fact that I get really annoyed. I quite like having costumes I can wear gloves with because I don't like taking my ring off. And so every time I have to do a costume without gloves, I'm like, no, maybe I'll just work the ring into the costume. It can be part of the costume.
If you don't mind me saying, I'm very surprised that you don't actually compete more, because that kind of level of detail is so holistic and natural to you, and is so kind of admired usually in big competitions, that it surprises me a little bit. Like I had a look at some of the competitions that you've been entered into, and I know that you do compete. Do you mind if I ask why?
Mostly because I don't think I'm good enough. And
how do you not think that? What? Like, you've just shown me like all of this incredible top stitch, and you're like, yeah, just did that in like 20 minutes. Yeah.
It's because I only have one skill. I am very good at this one thing.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. But I feel like, especially nowadays with Armour and like props making being so much more accessible to a lot more people, with things like Warbler and Foamcraft and stuff, being able to use that with only having one skill is, I can't impress judges as much with just that. I think like at the moment I'm trying to push myself with props making, and I'm trying to push myself more with going into things like embroidery and the slightly more detailed aspect of sewing, so that I can add to my repertoire. And I'm trying to improve my wig craft as well, so that I can start competing and going into bigger competitions. Like I have been wanting to do the European Cosplay Summit gathering, whatever, for years and years and years. And I just, every year I go, I'm going to do it. And then I go, I just don't have enough to push me, to make me better than everybody else. Like, because everybody who enters those things are incredibly talented. And I feel like I need, as much as I have one thing that I would say that I am better than most at, I love what I do, and I do know that there is, I have a level of skill that many people don't have, or just don't.
It's a very unique eye, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. That's it. I think I have
I
have a very different take on tailoring and sewing.
Yes, that
and I feel like maybe
as well is
and I think possibly it's just personal that I feel like I need more to compete. I don't know. I mean, we'll find out, because when I do finish my Newt's Commander costume, and I am building a suitcase that has a secret compartment in it, so that you can open it in 2 different ways. So it has the muggle-proof section.
Oh, yeah, that is awesome.
I am hopefully going to enter that into competition, and me and a friend are also building. I don't know if you know Agent Callus from Rebels, Star Wars Rebels.
I know Star Wars Rebels. I don't know the character sadly, because I've not seen it.
Yeah, he's sort of one of the main characters in it, and he has some quite spectacular armor and a very interesting weapon, which me and a friend are building together. Nice. So that we can enter a competition.
Nice.
But I would love to get back into competition. It's just I also find that I kind of spend a lot of time being really stressed about competing. And I also find myself on the day becoming a horrible human being for the day, because I'm so stressed out and so like kind of thing, I'm like eyeing everyone up. And so I found that like the best thing to do is when I compete is to go for prejudging, leave the convention and come back when I need to compete, because I will be so stressed out all day that I'll just be there like, hey, everybody's awful, I need to sit in a corner, not talk to anyone, and I become like Gollum. It's freaking horrible. I'm just like, precious cosplay. And, no. So there's a kind of a mental health kind of thing there as well.
Yes, I completely agree. Oh dear,
but
amazing.
How I met Xanth is we competed against each other, which was really nice. You do meet some lovely people competing, and I am trying to kind of ease myself back into it, because I would like to do it, and I'd also like to do it without the stress, because it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I'm quite fond of winning.
You seem very naturally, if you don't mind me saying as well, you seem very naturally built towards it as well. Like, as I say, your level of detail is so natural. It's not like you have to sit and go, oh, what's going to win me the competition? You just sit there and go, okay, I want to make sure that all of this top stitching is, 100% complete. And that's absolutely incredible. I mean, what would be, if you could make any costume in the world, what would be your dream costume to make?
Golly. Oh God, I don't know.
Oh, sorry, I might have stumped you now.
The thing that instantly comes to mind is Jaime Reese Blue Beetle from DC Comics, but that's not even a sewing project. It's an armor project that I would love one day to be able to do. I think that's it. I think I would love to do that because it's not something I do, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's not a costume that because like my dream costume for the last 2 years has been Hux, and then I made Hux.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time I kind of end up just making the costumes I really want to do because I kind of push myself. I go, am I good enough to make this yet? Yes, I am. Okay, I'll make it. You know. So I think I have like a little wish list in my head of things that I'm like, have I got to this good yet? But you know, I'm getting there.
Well, that is absolutely brilliant. I hope that one day you will be able to, and I'm pretty confident one day you will be able to make the armor of your dreams.
Yes.
But in the meantime, thank you so much for taking the time to show us your
lovely.
Fantastic work and for joining us. Little Prince, ladies and gentlemen, where can we find you on social media?
Okay, you can find me at Lil Prince Costumes on Facebook. On Twitter, I'm Littlest Prince, which is Lilist Prince. And if you search either of those things pretty much across the board in social media, you'll be able to find me. Because on Instagram, I'm also Little Prince Costumes, the same as my Facebook. And Tumblr, I'm just Little Prince, which is where the name originated from. So that's the original username. But yeah, I think you should be able to find me. And if you linkies, because spelling.
Yes, as always, guys, we will post the links up in the Facebook and we will tag Little Prince so that you can go and please do show massive support for Little Prince by liking and following. And also, please do feel free to subscribe to us. We're on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on many platforms. There are many things that is currently happening with Costume and Play. We are launching several new exciting projects. We're doing an entire overhaul of our social media. It's really, really exciting. Don't forget as well that Cosplay Craft Attack will be coming at you. It will be part 4 of the Halo Spartan Armour, and our special guest will be We Be Spartans, which is live next Monday at 8 p.m. We also have a brand new Twitch show launching that is called Fandom Theory that will be launching on the 20th of June. That's a show that spends time a little bit outside of the cosplay sphere and talks a little bit about the fandoms that we get the inspiration for making our costumes from. And that is going to be with Ash and is going to be an incredible show, guys. So please do like, subscribe and follow, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.